But hi, everybody. Thank you. Thank you very much, Alex, for inviting me to talk today. This talk's going to be a little bit different because I'm really going to be looking at sort of very much non-business style dashboards, just looking about creative data visualization. So I've entitled this, How Curiosity Will Help Your Creativity. And through my blog, Questions in DataViz, which has now become a book, in case you were curious what that QR code was, I've realized that behind all these sort of creative decisions, if you wanted to sort of learn how to think, how to do something just a little bit more different or unconventional to the standard kind of business dashboards, there's always sort of questions that lie behind that, and there's always questions which shape your journey from perhaps the more conventional to opening your mind to doing all sorts of different data visualizations, if that's your kind of thing. So that's a little bit about me and what's going to sort of frame this talk, the concepts behind the book. And in that, I think of questions in three different ways. So I think of it in terms of first questions, challenging questions, and idea questions. Now, the first questions might be sort of thinking about the standard best practice that you might know or that you might sort of learn as part of your role, but you may find that there's more to them than you think. And then challenging questions are thinking of things that are sort of the next step. They're not necessarily more challenging, but they don't sort of come along as you start in data visualization. It might be sort of questions that you think as you get a bit more experience. And then idea questions could be questions which really just sort of prompt an idea to do a whole different style of data visualization, maybe sort of give you the ideas of something that you might want to be doing. Okay, so I'm going to sort of frame this talk with an example of one of each of these questions. And my first basic question is going to be, what's in a color? Now, we all think about colors in data visualization, and maybe the good practices that you might have heard would be, use color sparingly, keep the number of colors down, reduce the saturation, and use a highlight color rather than sort of throw different colors at it. And always consider accessibility. And often when we consider accessibility, the first thing we learn is red-green color blindness. So that's sort of an example of a sort of very simple chart with muted colors. But there's always more to color than you think. And one of the first times I learned this was before I was even working in data visualization. I was leading a team in a market research company, and I had some desk diaries to give out. So it was before we did anything online even. So believe me, they didn't say 2023 on the front. They said 19 something or other. I was giving away my age a little bit, but I had a team of about 8 to 10 people, and all different diaries of different colors. And I gave them out. I left one person to last. He was probably he was older than me. He was a bit scary. He was about 2 meters tall, and he was, pretty forthright in his views. But he was a nice guy, really. And I had the last diary left, and I gave it to him. And he looked up at me. No, he didn't. He was tall. He looked down at me, and he just shook his head, and he went, "No." And I thought, what have I done? I walked away with my tail between my legs. I was a bit, the rest of my team were looking at me, going, "I can't believe he'd done that." And what I'd done was I'd given a red diary to him. Now, this guy, he will have nothing to do with anything red, and this is why. He's from Liverpool. There are 2 famous football teams in Liverpool. The one that this guy supported wears the blue, Everton. And I never knew this before. He wouldn't even write in red. He wouldn't own anything red. He wouldn't wear anything red. The significance of the color to his particular culture, his particular footballing culture, meant that blue and red had very different meanings, and he would only have blue in his life. And it's true, this is from 2022, and this is in the city of Liverpool, a fun run. Where they ask you to dress up as Santa Claus. Now you can see there's a few people in Liverpool who are happy to dress up as Santa Claus, have the fun, raise money for charity, but even in that case, they're not wearing red. So there can be deep-seated cultural associations with colors that you find in the least likely of places. So sometimes some color associations. I can struggle a bit with orange and blue. It's a great complementary pair, if you like, that Tableau and other software uses. Is orange will we associate that with hot and cold, and if so, which is good? Maybe maybe the orange one is good, the blue one is bad. I don't know. We're more familiar with red and green from sort of stop and go, and orange is kind of in the middle there, in the standard RAG, that's so often used. So which way, which is good? You usually have red as down and green as up. So is orange and blue, should that be the other way around? So it can be quite difficult to come up with these associations. This is, some of you might have seen this before. This is from the South China Morning Post, Iraq's bloody toll, and it's a great, powerful graphic using red. The red symbolizes violence. It symbolizes blood. It's really a sort of serious color, which says we've got a serious story of bad news to tell here, and it shows it even has a sort of symbolism coming from the top down to the bottom of the deaths during the Iraq War. Andy Cockgreave from Tableau, he famously looked at this and he said, well, what happens if we turn it the other way around? What happens if we change the headline, make it a less stark font, make it a more positive message? And what happens if we go from a harsh red to a cool blue? So there you go. Exactly the same chart, just flipped over, and you have a whole different story, a whole different message, a whole different thinking behind the chart. And color is one of those things that really gives you that different way of thinking. Here we have a lady from China looking at all the stock prices, and you can see rows and rows of green with just the occasional red. And in the West, we have this familiarity. We look at this and we might think, well, she should be happy. Why does she not look happy? All these greens. And then you see the greens have minuses. The greens are stock prices going down. It's only a few of them, the reds, which are going up. And again, we have the yellow kind of orange in the middle. So in China, the culture is absolutely different to most of the Western world. And in stock prices, they will typically use green for up and red for down. Green is well, red is a particularly lucky color in China, and that might be why. And here we have a list from Information is Beautiful of colors in culture. And it's quite hard to read because there's all sorts of different things in there. But all you need to know is every single part of the radius represents a different thing that we would associate with a color. So we've got things like happiness and luck and courage, cowardice, all sorts of things. And every different color going inwards represents a different culture and the different color that they might associate with it. And you can just see from that, from the kaleidoscope that it gives, that almost nothing is universally thought of in the same way if you look at a particular color. So maybe if you just look at, you go sort of round to the northeast there, number 35, that's sort of alternating red and green, and that one's good luck. And if you were to look at all these, you would see that so many colors have different associations depending on whether we're looking at maybe in the West or Japanese or Asian or Arab, etc., etc. So it all becomes a bit of a minefield, really. Here's a list from Lisa Charlotte Muth, who is a brilliant data visualization blogger, very much an expert on color and all sorts of things, really, a data rapper. And a few years ago, she looked at male and female. What are the major journalistic houses doing for male and female? All these on the left were major releases where it was always men were blue, women were pink, or pretty close to that. And all those on the right were different to that. So you can see about 50% of people were going straight down the sort of familiarity route of blue and pink for men and women. And on the right, people were going different. So what does that mean that you're supposed to do? I would draw attention. My particular favorite is green and purple from the Telegraph and one or two others. It deliberately moves away from perhaps the cliche of blue and pink. It picks colours very much associated with the suffragette movement. But does that mean that's what we have to do? I gave this talk a couple of months ago, and a lady came to me afterwards and said, well, I've always used blue and pink, and I quite like being pink. I don't mind. You know, it's easy. If you use blue and pink, you wouldn't necessarily have to put a legend there because people would know. People would make that association straight away. So instantly, you've got that choice to make. Do I want to go with the traditional? Am I alienating, you know, people who might think that's a little bit cliche? Do I want to go with something a bit more different, but that will need a little bit more explanation? And I don't know. As I said, the lady, it's totally up to you. Very much all these questions you come up with, they don't always have answers. They just, I love to encourage you to think a little bit more, to think beyond the cliche or beyond what you might originally learn, or your preconceived ideas, and then, you know, come up with a decision based on that. And that's entirely up to you. Sometimes you have to break all the rules about colors. These were some fun visualizations I did about one of my favorite bands, and I went with one color per song, and there were 19 songs. So that was break all the rules about accessibility, break all the rules about keeping your palette simple, go bold, go colorful if that's what you want. And similarly, if your colors have associations, so this is just a simple visualization all about the lines of the London Underground. Those are so well known, you can't not use the particular colors that they are associated with. So you don't really have any rules to follow there other than use the particular line colors. So much to think about when you look at colors. Now, my next level question was one that doesn't usually come up when you think data viz, and it came up well, a couple of years ago now, when I was researching the book. We noticed there was a few cool things going around with triangles, and we thought, well, what's that? Why is that? What's brought that about? And you look at triangles, and triangles can be different shapes. They could be right-angled, equilateral, scaling. So if you have this in your chart, what are you even measuring? Are you measuring one of the sides? You're measuring the area? It's not always clear. Here's something that Steve Wexler did when researching his book for the big book of dashboards, as well as the big picture. And if you see comparing area to bar, look how the top one, where he asked people to estimate the size of a circle, given that one was 100, look how spread out the results are. And whereas if you do the similar exercise for the bar, look how so many more responded with the correct answer. So triangles are difficult. If I was to give you this and say, what percentage of that is the dark blue section? You know, if I've given this face to face, I get all sorts of different answers. So how much of the larger triangle do you think that would be? About 50% maybe? I'll wait for a response. If I show you this now, there's the same triangle. It's the biggest triangle in here, but it has annotation, and it's pointing to the fact that that's 35%. So there's a bit of an optical illusion there. Triangles are tricky. But I love this visualization. This visualization from the Washington Post showed how reservoirs were drying out, and the triangle looks like the cross section of a reservoir. So we might have difficulty telling exactly how much percent it is, but if we saw a reservoir or a lake that was that low, we'd think, blimey, that lake is down low. And everything we need to know is actually annotated there. The major lakes and reservoirs have got that amount there. So you can pull out the analytic information from there. It just needs a little bit more work, but you gain from the symbolism of having something that looks a little bit like what you're trying to compare. And then this was doing the rounds as well. This was from Christina Sush from Hungary. She did some great static visualizations. This is she did some animated visualizations. This is a static version of them. And she did all sorts of sports. This was from the UEFA 2020 football, which happened in 2021. And she showed how each game built up score to score and did it in a series of geometrical triangles. It's very much a data art type thing, but it was so eye-catching. It was really good to see how, well, I can show England versus Denmark, how England went 1 goal behind, but then finished 2 goals ahead, and how each chunk just automatically became a triangle. And she said in the conference recently, she had so many people liked it, and so many people asked her to recreate all sorts of different sports. I was a little bit different. I contacted her and said, can I please do it myself? And I wanted to see if I could do it. This is for curling, a Winter Olympic sport. And I just think it's so much fun how you can create something geometrical, in this case animated, and just really eye-catching to show scores of sports in a different way. And it's all triangles. I don't know how many triangles are on that page. I love it. This was a visualization on the left from Sonia Kuipers, and you can see again there's triangles in the middle where the comparison between the mark that's being shown and 100% is difficult to tell, but it's all very carefully annotated, and it's really the geometry of it makes for a nice eye-catching visualization. So again, this is something I wanted to recreate. It was something I was able to recreate in Tableau, looking at contraception choices for women across all sorts of different countries. And the great thing is, no matter how whatever you might introduce in terms of ease or difficulty to read, it instantly becomes easier when you have things to compare them against. So if you have a small multiple grid like that, you can compare much more easily the metrics that you're looking at from one country to another, even if you've gone unconventional using triangles for whatever reason you want to do that. And sometimes it's the structure of a chart, which by definition has to be a triangle. These are driving distances between different cities in the UK. And we only need that bottom left-hand side. What does it say? Edinburgh to Liverpool, 214 miles. If we have the top right, all that would be saying is that Liverpool to Edinburgh was 214 miles. We don't need that. So sometimes when you're just showing two measures against each other like that, it's the structure of the chart is by definition a triangle. So here's a sort of more complex example of one of my visualizations where it was the same kind of thing. I was looking at the year bought on one axis and the year sold on the other. So for houses, the year sold is always going to be after the year bought. You're never going to use the top right-hand corner of the chart. So it gives a sort of striking triangle shape, if you like. You can use the white space or the blank space, even not the white space, the blank space that your chart structure gives you to make sure that you have all the annotation that you need, the title, the legend, and things like that. And again, while I was doing this and writing the book, I was contacted by Zion Armstrong, who's a data visualization expert who works with scientists, and says, well, actually, we use triangle charts all the time in metallurgy. So the science of metals, ternary charts like this are really often used. Now, to you and me, we might think this is a little bit complex. It's looking at the different compositions of tin, cobalt, and tantalum there, and it's showing how much alpha 3.2 EV is in them. I don't even know what that means, but a scientist would recognize this and would be able to interpret it nice and easily, and B, make their own recommendations based on the color, the color changes between the different compositions. So often it can be familiarity. We may be discouraged from using something like a ternary chart because that's kind of difficult for your basic audience. But if it's often used in your field, then there's no reason why you can't use something like that. Finally, lots of triangles here. This is a visualization I created to show all the individuals in the Data Visualization Society. And it actually started, if you can see at the top in the middle there, it's actually kind of a radar chart, a spider chart, where for each person, we just have 3 attributes. So if you've got 3 attributes, that becomes a triangle. And I created it and I thought, well, how can I show this? And I found that if I colored them according to geography, we started to get some nice some nice patterns emerging. But I also found, and this is a different sort of question, are you kind of allowed to overlap different marks like that? It breaks the rules in terms of analytics. It means we can't really see what each individual one is. But that's not really what I was interested in. I was interested in more of the metaphor. I was interested in more of just the overall eye-catching piece. So by using triangles, but also by overlapping them, so you could see all the kind of differences, but you can't really sort of analyze them, then you really got a good it had a really good look of a forest, a community, which is exactly what I was trying to show, how the Data Visualization Society was just in its infancy and building into a great community. And as an aside, if you guys don't know the Data Visualization Society, check out datavisualizationsociety.com. It's such a huge grouping, and I'm sure many of you are already involved of community and activities and all sorts of conversations that you can have. Okay, here's my third one. I'm going to speed up a little bit here because I'm coming closer towards the end. But this, if you like, is my idea question. And I realized that as a result of doing a lot of geometric visualizations and unconventional stuff, that I really like to visualize using flowers. So I wrote a chapter on that. Why? Why do I visualize using flowers? And I'm going to sort of go back, and I always love to bring this in to anything when I'm talking about Tableau. I'm not actually talking about Tableau in this talk. It happens to be the software that I use, but obviously this applies to everything or any particular skills that you have or software that you're using. But in this case, I take you back to this, and this is some art by Peach Mondrian, very famous, resembles data visualization. You might think that looks like a tree map. I could do that. That gives me an idea of doing some geometric data art. And what I love is it's actually called Tableau #1. A bit of a coincidence, if you like, but it's validation, if you like, for some of the things that I love to do. And if you define Tableau, it's like a picture or a scene, if you define it in English. And if you look at it in French and perhaps the translations of something like, because it is a French word, you can see it has a lot more meanings. But it's basically a board, isn't it? It's a blank board. It's your blank canvas, if you like. And the English translation there sort of implies that it's a striking scene that you want to put on this blank canvas. So that's why I love to use Tableau, or you might love to use whatever your software is, just to create a great sort of story or striking scene of your visualization. And this is one that I was first struck by from Istvan Korenboy and Yvette Kovac. She did this to compare the number of women in high positions in 100 different companies in the US. And it's like a petal chart, a flower chart. It's really striking. It's quite beautiful. You can see from the colors how much the blue is sort of overpowers the purple. And I just really liked it as a way of showing information. And one of my own flower inspired charts was this for Operation Fistula, which is a charity who perform real sort of life improving operations on women in Africa. And I love the way that I could show the improvement in lives and the potential years gained just by the look of flowers there. So each individual person is a flower, but it just gave that metaphor of additional life gained, if you like, and how most of them are sort of moving in the wind, sort of left to right. And you can even sort of see I encoded information of the women's ages into the roots there. But what is, if you actually sort of deconstruct flowers, the reason I love visualizing with flowers is they're like scatter plots, but scatter plots on steroids, if you like, to borrow Igor's phrase from earlier. So scatter plot will give you size and color and position and shape. So it's really good for encoding all sorts of different information. Flowers, it gives you the same, but then you can also have petals which have their own colors. They have their own positions in rotation, their own shapes, and you can also put encodings into the stalk as well. And here's another example. I mean, it's a bit more abstract than that, but again, it's sort of very similar. And any geometric visualization like this, they're aimed in a way to be artistic and eye-catching, and I don't mind the reader doing the work. You may mind that, you may not. That's a question to ask. If you're going more for sort of something artistic or unconventional, then let them see it first, and then let them, if they want to, do the work to encode. But obviously, this is not for board meetings or clients, that kind of thing. So back to this, what I first loved about this, my flower visualization, which incidentally is all about Premier League squad content, was when I pasted it into PowerPoint, it represented it as a group of colorful flowers, which in the alt text, which I was really pleased at, because I know I've just done some circles and ellipses and colors and polygons there, but it has been recognized as flowers. So I won't go through how to do this. I've got a little bit in here, but only just to take from this is that everything is just a mathematical shape there. So if you can sort of go back and relearn some of your school trigonometry, that's how you're going to be able to figure it out. And I join, this is more of the technical stuff, I like to sort of join a shapes file. So basically, every mark has, in this case, 38 different marks attached to it, and that allows me to draw all these different shapes. So if I want to draw a petal, I actually draw a circle and I squish it, because it's easier to do the geometry of a circle than to remember how to do something more complex. And then once I put them all in, you can sort of color them in, and then I was able to Google, well, what do I have to do if I want to rotate something through a certain number of degrees? And then it all sort of comes into place like this. So you don't need to know the mathematics, you just need to be able to copy someone else, and you'll be able to Google it, or just sort of one or other of those things. And then once you put it together, fix it in place, make sure your proportions are okay, then you can actually get Tableau to draw things, or your software to draw things, just by encoding all that information into different shapes, curves, and colors. So I've whizzed through that last bit a bit. It wasn't supposed to be a technical definition of how to do it, more a celebration of how flowers can give you that extra bit of metaphor, but they also give you that extra number of dimensions that you can encode in one place. So here's my summary and why I love asking questions. It's to question your basic principles, even things like color. Can I bend some of these rules? Can I break them? Do I have to? Think of questions you haven't thought of before, when it starts maybe when you're overlapping things, or when you're using unfamiliar shapes, and you might be able to think, well, am I all right doing this? I don't see why not. And just think of a brand new idea. If you come up with a brand new idea, then go for it. What are the pros? What are the cons? Who is your audience? And what you'll always do from doing this, you'll learn skills that you can take back to your day job. Some of the skills from creating some of these lines, or from maybe some of the calculations that you need to do, are actually going to be really useful when you've got some tricky sales figures to show in more conventional ways. So I always think of Tableau as a blank canvas. It's like a blank canvas of graph paper. So if you can draw it and draw lines and come up with something creative and ask questions, then you will always be able to come up with something. And the last bit there is increasing fun. I've had so much fun along the way. I've had so much fun writing the book, and so much fun creating loads of visualizations that are part of it. And I hope if you sort of take on the same mindset, that you can have some of that fun too. So that's the end of my talk. And yes, any questions? It's only fair if I've been talking about them to see if anyone has any questions.
Great presentation, Neil. And we have questions in our Q&A session. The first from Marta Pinto. I'm curious of which software tool did you use to create the data visualization society of multiple colorful triangles?
Yes, I didn't. I probably answered that question now. I didn't mention any tools apart from just towards the end, where I started dropping the name of Tableau a bit. But that's what I used. I used Tableau. It's, you could probably do it in all sorts of different tools, but that's the only one that I know. And yes, so if you can create most of your things to or convert them to something that's X and Y and mathematical, then you can have fun with triangles and all sorts of creative geometry.
Okay, and the similar, we have seen other speakers using D3 and other SVG-based solutions to produce such customized visualizations. Would you recommend using Tableau or other tools allowing more customized web-based solutions?
I would recommend whatever you're comfortable with. D3, I think, is a steeper learning curve because it requires a bit of coding skill, and that's not the route that I took. But I've seen, D3 can do some beautiful stuff, and if you have that in your own particular toolkit, I probably would recommend that. Yeah. Just whatever fits the data that you have and the skill set that you have, you can use. This is a sort of tool agnostic talk, and it's a tool agnostic book too. So have fun with whatever whatever you have to skill with.
Also, how do you deal with using a different approach that general public is not expecting used to?
Well, yeah, I mean, and the majority of what I have done is not necessarily for the general public, or the general public that it is for people who are going to appreciate it. So if I put out the viz that's visualizing football squads as flowers, we're going to have a small amount of the general public who thinks, oh, that's great, I really like that, that's clever. And we're going to have a large amount of the general public who's going to think, why on earth has he done that? So it's not for everyone. As art isn't for everyone, but it's something that as a creative pastime I really enjoy, and has really helped me in my skills and my career. And the output will be for people who enjoy that kind of thing. I'm sure there's a lot of people on this call who like sort of creative data art style visualizations, and I'm sure there's a lot of people on this call who aren't, and are waiting for the next talk about how to do great dashboards. The great thing is that nobody, everybody is different, so don't worry too much. Well, this isn't necessarily a talk about how to design for the general public, but so don't worry too much about that, but just always consider your audience, and remember that if it is for the general public, maybe don't go too bananas with your creative ideas. Come up with something that's a bit more sensible.
Okay. Other posts you can recommend describing the process for creating geometric shapes in Tableau?
I don't know if there's posts that I can recommend specifically. I know I've put a little bit more detail up about the what I did towards the end there. Generally speaking, Tableau is amazing, and if somebody has done something clever, they usually really want to post about it and blog about it. So if there's something that you're wondering how you might want to do, if you Google and manage to get the right person, you will usually find it. I'm sure the Flairages have done some amazing stuff on that as well. Brian Moore has Do More with Data has got all sorts of really nice geometrical stuff up there, more advanced stuff than I've been able to do. These guys both know how to do some great curves. So specifically, I can't remember anything on triangles or something like that. But generally, if you look, you'll find that the community has been very sort of sharing, and there's all sorts of content out there.
Okay, thank you very much for this inspiring presentation. I have a final personal question.
Okay.
According to my perception, this content is about data, data journalism, data visualization approach, and you also was editor at DVS, but also you work in business intelligence industry. And yesterday, at the previous panel discussion, I asked my guest to pick a side. What field is primary for you, data journalism or business intelligence? And could you make this choice, or how do you define this side?
It's my day job is business intelligence. I probably always look at, they say the grass is always greener, and I am fascinated by data journalism and some of the more creative stuff. So I'm trying to sort of bridge that gap, if you like. So use skills from one area to do in the other. But it's very much I have a business side and a personal side, if you like, or a business side and a creative side. So business side, yes, business intelligence. But what I love about business intelligence tools is that they can be used as well for data journalism, data art, data visualization, anything like that. So, we've spoken about Tableau. Tableau is a BI tool, and it's the best BI tool. Well, it's a very good BI tool. And if you're a BI person and you use it for your job, that's all you need to use it for. And Tableau will fit your needs perfectly. I've peered over that fence and thought, well, actually, these BI tools can do other things. They can do things that data journalists use, or they can do things that data artists use, or information designers. So I'm sort of encouraging people, if it's your thing, to sort of come up with a mindset to use a BI tool to do more stuff which is less BI specific.
Okay, so I'll write down your answer as you are in between and you are setting the bridges